Say one thing for Joe Abercrombie. Say he writes good books. Hello everybody, how are you doing? My name is Ashley and this is the Library of a Silver Saint where we talk all things books. I hope you're doing well today. I would usually start my video off with a comment about the weather, but actually it's making me so mad I'm not even going to talk about it. 2 syllables. Days. Death. We're not going to talk about it. How are you doing? I hope you're doing well today. I just wanted to let you guys know that I've got my beverage of choice today, but it's not a cup of tea. Ernie, shush. He's moaning. I don't know why. It's because we took him on a run this morning. He's pooped. It's not a cup of tea today. No biscuit tea. We have freshly brewed coffee. I need it today. The caffeine is needed. It's so dark outside, I'm not awake yet. But make sure you grab a beverage, grab something to sip, grab something to nibble on if you need a snack for sustenance, whatever floats your boat. Make sure you've got it and get cozy with me. In today's video, I wanted to do, I'm so excited about this one. I've been flapping about this all week, but in a good way. I'm so excited. In today's video, I really want to talk about a trilogy that I have just finished. And this trilogy it's changed my life. It's changed my world, it's changed my outlook, it's changed my brain, it's changed everything. Game changer of a series. I don't know how I'm going to be coherent in this video, but we will see. In today's video, I really want to talk to you about the First Law Trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. Oh my goodness. So this is made up of the Blade itself, Before They Are Hanged, and The Last Argument of Kings. Now, I have been mentioning these books in my last few videos because I've been reading them over the last couple of months. And honestly, guys, life-changing. Life-changing in the best way. If you've seen any of my sort of previous videos over the last couple of weeks, or if you follow me on Instagram, you will know that this series has kind of taken over my brain a little bit and I'm a little bit obsessed. To make sure that I don't just ramble about my thoughts and just word vomit at you, I've tried my best to gather my thoughts, put them together, I've written them down, and I want to try and deliver them in the most, I don't know, not necessarily the most efficient way, but the way that doesn't come across, as I say, incoherent and like I'm just crazy. I don't know where to start. So this is the first series I've ever read by Joe Abercrombie. I think it is often sort of pointed at as the best place to start in his series of books. A lot of his books are sort of based in this universe, the First Law universe. I was sort of, when looking at where to start with his books, because he's got some standalones as well, and then also some short stories, a lot of people had pointed out the First Law trilogy is the best place to start. So I did, and honestly, after hearing about it from so many people, I knew that I would love it in a way, but I didn't know I would love it this much. Joe Abercrombie is described as Lord Grimdark. He calls himself Lord Grimdark because his books are really quite dark, but they have that side of them, which is what I was talking about in a previous video, where they're weirdly cozy and fun, and I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, this is one of the most well thought out series and well written series that I have ever read. It's so incredibly well thought out. It's almost seamless, and just the intricacy of how Joe has just seamlessly woven together all of these plot threads, character dynamics. It's just incredible. It's so clever, and I'm just in awe of his abilities, to be honest. I heard a lot about this series before going into it, and I'd heard lots of mixed reviews. A lot of people traditionally say that you start off with the Blade itself and it's quite slow, or there doesn't seem to be much plot. And then progressively, as you go throughout the series, it gets more plot driven and more action packed and starts to make a bit more sense. And so people traditionally enjoy it more as they go along. I was expecting with book one, The Blade itself, from people sort of saying that it was slower, less plot driven, a bit complicated or confusing, that I perhaps wouldn't enjoy it very much, and that I would have to just get through book one and then get to book 2 and 3 to really see the payoff and to really start enjoying it. But for me, that wasn't the case at all. Book one, Blade itself, I was obsessed, absolutely obsessed. And I think the thing that hooked me in so much is just the characters. I can safely say this is one of my favourite series of all time, and I cannot wait to continue with Joe's other books. Say one thing for Joe Abercrombie. Say he writes good books. I can't cope. To try and keep this ramble/review as concise and coherent as possible, I just wanted to briefly talk over my rating system. So to rate books, I used to go kind of just by feeling, but then I felt, since I was doing more in-depth reviews and sharing them with people, I wanted to use a system that was a bit more in-depth, well thought out. And Mads from Chris and Mads has developed a rating system on a spreadsheet, which I use now. When you become a Patreon of Chris and Mads' channel, you can have access to the spreadsheet, the review spreadsheet. So that's what I've done. And I'm so glad I've done this because it's incredible and it's really helped me with my ratings for books. Within this system, you create a rating for a book, 1 to 5, 1 being didn't really have that much impact, 5 being had a lot of impact. They are rated on lots of different aspects. So Mads' review system focuses on different aspects. So I'm just going to quickly read them because I know I'll miss one if I don't. So we have characters, setting, plot, themes, emotional impact, and overall enjoyment. Each of those sections is given a rating out of 5, and then it creates an average overall. There are also other sections for things like did you cry, and things like that, but for mainly the score is generated from these aspects. I don't really use this tracker to come up with a firm sort of star rating as such, because I still do like to go based on just my feelings. And generally, I think sometimes sharing star ratings, it can't always encapsulate all of your thoughts about a book. I'm just going to talk about my overall feelings in general for each of these sort of sections, rather than give a star review or my rating on each one. I'm just going to talk to you about what I felt about each of these things whilst reading these books. I can feel myself getting excited. Caffeine is probably not a good idea for me right now, but it feels right. I do apologise if I look towards my laptop screen at any point. I did sit down and actually write up my thoughts and my notes on each thing, so I may my eyes might just go to it because I don't want to miss anything out. I wanted to sit down and make sure that I wrote down all of my thoughts really clearly. I may just be looking at the screen every now and then just to make sure that I don't miss anything. The First Law series is kind of centred around a sort of medieval European-esque world, and in the First Law Empire there used to be magic, and magic used to be quite prevalent, but it doesn't really exist anymore. It's sort of withered away and people don't really believe in it anymore, don't believe that it's present anymore. The world is also split into empires, so it's kind of reminiscent of A Song of Ice and Fire. That it was quite reminiscent of that for me, but I don't want to directly sort of compare it as such. But you have got in the north, you've got the north where there are the Northmen, the North people. It's quite a barren land, cold, and the people that are there are seen to be quite savage and uncivilized, and there's lots of war and tension. They're kind of seen as barbarians, and they are led by a new king called King Bethod. We then have the Union. Now this kind of, why I don't want to compare it as such, but it reminded me of King's Landing in A Song of Ice and Fire. Eddie! Sorry, he's whining again. He's sad. So this is a great realm which encompasses many areas, and it has a high king. And then in the south, you have a group of people called the Gurkish, and they are at war with the Union. I loved the different settings in the First Law universe. I found that each one was incredibly distinct. Each one had a very unique description in terms of the actual physical setting, but also the people that inhabit these areas. They're very distinct, and I really like that because it really helped with the characterization of a lot of the actual individual characters that we follow. It helped really support their backstory, support their characterization, their personality, and their motives as well. One thing that Joe really excelled at for me was his descriptions of these settings. You know, you've got the ruined lands, the hot, the cold, dry, the damp, the muddy, all of it. I felt gross while reading some of these chapters. Like I felt filthy. Like I was covered in sand, covered in mud, caked in blood from a war or a little battle that's just happened. I felt freezing. I felt like I was trudging through mud, absolutely soaked to my bones. And then there are also, it's not even just the external scenery, but also the internal in buildings. Quite a few scenes take place in sort of prison cells. Even the descriptions of those alone, it gave me shudders. I felt like I was there. The detail that Joe has gone to is it's exquisite. Now, the characters. This is where Joe really excels. The characters in this series are just phenomenal. I can't. Leanne from Amongst Chaos She Reads is going to be giggling and screaming and kicking her feet when I do this section, I think, because she is currently reading the series, and we've been talking about the characters and how much of an impact they had on us or are having on us, and how we can't stop thinking about them and how they make us feel. And it's so intense. Now, if you know me, you know that I love a morally grey character. Gabriel de Leon is one of them. You know, he's untrustworthy. He is definitely morally grey. He makes decisions which you sometimes question quite a lot. Fitz in Farseer, he's kind of morally grey. In this series, in the First Law, there isn't really a particularly good character. There isn't really a protagonist. There's no clear good character. All of these characters don't necessarily have redeeming qualities. They have elements of these qualities. There's elements of honour and elements of love and compassion, but they're kind of also interwoven with so many bad choices and awful character arcs. It makes you question whether they're just morally black. They kind of go beyond morally grey. Despite none of the characters really having many redeeming qualities, I loved them. I loved all of them. And each character, whether they are sort of a main character, one of the ones at the front and centre of the story for like a point of view in the story, or even just some of the side characters, they were all so distinct and also meaningful. They all played such a part in the overall story. Sometimes I feel like side characters are just there to be side characters. All of these characters were equally worthy in their weight. They were worth their pages. They were worth their time. I feel that Joe just knocked out of the park with them. I loved them all so much. As I mentioned, each character is so distinct. They just completely leapt off the page. Within a few words, I knew which character I was reading, and I loved that. And this is obviously even easier. So I listened to books 2 and 3 on audio, and Stephen Pacey is the narrator. He does the voice acting. He does an incredible job at narrating these books and giving each character a unique voice. So it was easier in that sense. But even in the Blade itself that I read physically with my eyeballs, I knew exactly which character was speaking, and I loved that. It was just so clear. So I'm just going to talk about some of the standout characters for me. Logan Ninefingers, who is a disgraced warrior, barbarian. He's got a really bloody and unforgivable past, and yet he's strangely calm, peaceful, and really self-reflective. It's quite a skill, actually. But there is an element of him which is Ernie. He's whining so much. I'm so sorry if you can hear him. There is an element of Logan which is not very calm and not very gentle, and that is the Bloody Nine. And I'm not going to go into too much depth about that because I don't want to spoil anything, but there is definitely an element of him that is different from that. So to see those two sides of his personality and how they contradict each other and how he navigates and manages that was really interesting. Despite how deadly he is, despite how foul he is, you can't help but love him and his nature. He's weirdly calm and wholesome and lovely, but he's awful. You then have Giselle Dan Luther. I've referred to him before. He is a whiny little shitweasel. His POV is so frustrating, especially in book 1, where he's incredibly vain. He's a spoilt nobleman who has had everything handed to him on a plate. He's insufferable. He's childish. He's just so frustrating to the max. He's really spoiled. He's a womanizer, and he's so incredibly vain. You can just tell he's one of those characters that just loves the appearance of himself in the mirror. He just loves looking at himself in the mirror. Totally thinks that everyone around him looks at him, looks to him, and cares about what he thinks and what he does. He thinks that everybody cares about him. Throughout the series, he is a character who goes through so many arcs, and I know that's very sort of stereotypical to say, but he does, and it's a bit of one of those. It's a bit of a roller coaster. He goes through so many arcs, but then it's not always plain sailing for him. I really liked his character development. And as frustrating of a character as he was, I really enjoyed reading his chapters. I found them to be so utterly compelling. Inquisitor Glockter. Sandan Glockter. He is the most scary definition of "but daddy, I love him" that I've ever come across. Previously a successful soldier, then captured by the Gurkish and tortured, and now a torturer himself. This man has absolutely no moral code. He is suffering. This man is constantly in pain. Even the smallest things to most people in this book, climbing some stairs, getting out of bed, walking from one place to another. This man finds such a struggle because of the injuries that he has sustained from being tortured. He is essentially now a cripple. Those descriptions of him, his inner monologue and what he is going through, perfection. Just perfection. I have never been so utterly engrossed by a character than Sandan Glock. He's one of my favourite characters I've ever encountered. Ever. His introductory chapter is him getting up and facing just going up some stairs. And the battle that he goes through just to do that and how it's written, it's insane. This man has absolutely no moral code. He makes all of his choices that he does to not better himself, but to place himself in a better position. But he also does it out of necessity. For him, there's no choice. There's no choice but to do these things. And he does some awful things. But to him, they're necessary for his progression and survival in this really harsh political environment that he's in. He's so intelligent. He's incredibly witty. He's sarcastic. His internal monologue and how it's structured in the book was genius. You have his dialogue with other characters, and sometimes his dialogue will stop mid-sentence, and then in the book it will change to italics to show his inner monologue. He will sometimes start a sentence in dialogue with a character and then finish it in his internal monologue and say something really funny or witty or sarcastic, and I was just howling at him. And sometimes it's really bad. I feel so bad because sometimes it was something really awful, but he's just so funny, and he weirdly makes not light of his scenario and his situation. He always stresses how awful what he's going through is, but he's so aware. He's so aware, and he knows there's nothing he can do about it except from just keep going. I can't. I want to share so many of his quotes, but I don't want to give any spoilers, but I may do a cheeky one at the end. These characters sound and are awful, yet I wanted them to succeed. I wanted them to do well. As I said previously, it isn't even the major characters that stood out for me. The smaller characters in this book were just as fleshed out, just as important, and just as necessary. They all earned their pages completely. So you've got one who I consider to be an incredibly underrated character is Pharaoh. She is an escaped survivor of the Gurkish. So she was kept as a slave by the Gurkish, and she is so strong, so powerful, and she just has vengeance on her mind. And I love that. She's also, when you learn more about her and what she's been through, there's such a depth to her, but she doesn't allow anybody to see that. And I really loved her character. We've then got another character, Colin West. He is a major in the Union Army, and he is a good man with a good heart, but he has a dark side. He has a really dark side to him, and he's aware of this. It's really interesting to see how he emotionally contends with that. You then have his sister, Ardie West, another completely underrated character for me. I absolutely loved Ardie's character. She is a country girl. She's new to the Union. She's newly moved there, and she's kind of just bored with what is expected of her as a woman in society. She's incredibly clever and so outspoken, but she's often silenced and seen as a disgrace, and she copes with all of this by being an alcoholic and lashing out. But again, there's so much depth to her. You then have the Northmen. Now, there's a group of Northmen that used to be banded with Logan Ninefingers, and they are made up of the Dogman, Three Trees, loads of others. I can't go through all of them, but each one of them has their own personality and their own motive, their own experiences, and they're just incredible. Finally, one that I have mentioned in a previous video but haven't mentioned yet is Baez. So he's a mage, or first of the Magi, so he's essentially a wizard, and he is seemingly in the know about everything that is going on. He knows everyone, he knows everything. He is the main drive in this story in terms of moving the story forward. You don't know whether to trust him or not, but you know that he knows everything, and you can see that he's kind of putting a band together, putting the fellowship together. He is sort of pulling all of these characters from different sides and pushing them together. A lot of the story is figuring out why he's doing that, and it just drip feeds it for you. Ultimately, the characters were, for me, the perfect thing about this series. It just astounding, astonishing, mind blown. Now we move on to the plot. So this series is often criticised for not having much of a plot. I do see where people are coming from with this, but my experience is quite different. The plot in this story isn't very surface level. The plot is mainly, for me, was mainly experienced through the characters, through their point of views. Now I know that sounds really obvious, but there isn't a sort of clear plot. Some stories, the plot is, we're starting here, we need to get to there, that's the goal. That wasn't the case in this series. There was it wasn't clear where anybody was going or what they were doing, but you could just see gradually over time these bits of information being drip fed from different characters. and eventually you could start to see it, but you do kind of have to sing for your supper a little bit with this one. The plot is very much held within the characters and their motives. I would say that The Blade itself, the first book, predominantly introduces your characters, and I would say the plot is very murky at this point. You're only getting the smallest bits and bobs of it. In the second book, you've got a lot of individual quests and things that are going on, and then in the third book, all of these threads just come together. It's mind-blowing. The threads of the plot are so intricately woven that in the third book, it almost slaps you around the face, and you can just see what a genius Joe is. Emotional impact. This series had a lot more emotional impact on me than I thought it would. Logan's internal battle with himself, with his bloody past and who he is. Ardy's emotional struggles with her place in society and her relationship with her brother. Giselle and his character arc and what he goes through. Glockter, a man that has been brutally tortured and now tortures other people. How is he able to do this and yet still show some heart? It's just masterful. Colin West, also a good man that does bad things. How he navigates this, it's just incredible. I'm just going to read one of my favourite quotes. Once you've got a task to do, it's better to do it than live with the fear of it. This one, absolutely kicking my feet in this scene. Leanne from Amongst the Chaos She Reads will know what I mean. Say one thing, Logan Nine Fingers. Say he's a lover. Oh, it was so good. And then one of Glockter's quotes that just floored me. You are aware, I suppose, that I lived through 2 years of torture, 2 years in hell so I can stand before you now, or lean before you, twisted as an old tree root. A crippled, shambling, wretched mockery of a man, eh, Lord Hoff? Let us be honest with one another. Sometimes I lose control of my own leg, my own eyes, my own face, he snorted. If you can call it a face. My bowels, too, are rebellious. I often wake up doubting my own shit. I find myself in constant pain, and the memories of everything that I have lost nag at me endlessly. He felt his left eye twitching. Let it twitch. So you can see how, despite my constant efforts to be a man of sunny temper, I find that I despise the world and everything in it, and myself most of all, a regrettable state of affairs for which there is no remedy. That man. In terms of overall enjoyment, I laughed, I was disgusted, I was cringed, I was in love, I was kicking my feet. This series has it all. I'm obsessed. You have to read this series. If you've not already, you have to read it. It is one of my favourite series of all time. I'm sorry that was such a ramble, but I love it. Please let me know if you have read the First Law Trilogy, or if you've read any of them, and whether you enjoyed it, what you liked about it, what you didn't. I would love to know your thoughts. I'd love to know if you agree with me on anything, or if you disagree with me on anything. Please share below. If you like this video, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you'd like to become a firm member of a Library of a Silver Saint. And again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!